when I accomplished all those things that were my goals, I kind of like lost my mojo. Like I was still there, I was still present, but I didn't have this like energy to see like scale. I didn't want to take higher risks, which is what I needed to do in order to continue to grow my business, like financial risks, all that stuff, because I finally got myself to a point where I was like, I can live comfortably. You know, what's my next step in life?
She just sold her company. She sat in a room full of men negotiating the biggest deal of her lifetime. Wait, she sold for how much? I can't even believe she managed to get double her valuation. Let's keep this just between us.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of The Exit Whisperer. I am your host, Carrie Kerpen, and I cannot wait for you to meet Ali Von Paris. Even her name alone gives off the energy that you're about to experience when I talk to her. So Ali Von Paris started an apparel company all around all things Maryland when she was in college, all starting with when her favorite bar where she worked closed down and she needed to commemorate it in a really interesting way. That grew into a self-funded behemoth around all things Maryland, where she came up with concepts for licensing, ended up getting a warehouse, and eventually facilitated an epic exit. In this interview, it's really interesting because she's fresh off the exit. It'll be airing later, but when I interviewed her, it was just a month later. And so one of the things that I think you'll love about this is really getting in the mindset of somebody who's just gone through a huge, huge shift, not just in like what they do, but in that moment, like who they are. And so I hope you really enjoy this interview. Ali is amazing, and I can't wait for you to experience it. Here's Ali. Welcome, Ali, to the show. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so excited to be here. I can't believe I found you on Instagram and now I'm here just on your podcast. It's awesome.
I'm in immediate besties. That's it.
Yes, I love it.
It's immediate. Okay, so listen, I've been reading all about you, know all about you, all of your fabulousness, and I need to hear about the start of this because as I read it, there was a viral t-shirt that started it all. So talk to me a little bit about the start of Route One.
I am a first generation college student. I was going to a local college, big college, University of Maryland. I'm a Maryland born and bred girl. And, you know, I just kind of did it because everyone was doing it. Everyone was going to college next. I didn't really know where my passion was, but my mom working in finance was like, you know, be near the money. So I was a finance major myself, but I just didn't really connect with the classes and what I was doing. So gratefully, being a business major, you tend to have a little bit more free time, I'd say. And so I picked up a job at this local bar called the Thirsty Turtle. And that bar in and of itself was its own story. I mean, like, you know, Pauly D back in the day,
Yeah,
real big, was DJing there, all these different big names.
okay.
So it was a great way for someone who was first generation college student, paying my way through school, to have a non-minimum wage job. But unfortunately, the bar was too popular with underage folks and it was forced to shut down. So I was out of work. And I remember one of my last shifts, I was really upset. And this kitchen guy was just like, do you need money? And I felt like someone threw water in my face. And I was like, you know what? Snap out of it. You're going to a great school. There's opportunity all around you. And I kid you not, like 1 or 2 days later, I was listening to all these people share their stories about the bar. And I thought maybe I can make a commemorative t-shirt to support the bar. I always had a knack for design. So I whipped up this design and I sent it to the owners. Hey, can I sell this? Can I sell this to the staff? And everyone wanted it. So I posted it on social media. This is back in 2010. So social media is still kind of fresh. E-commerce was fresh. And this post went absolutely viral. I'm telling like maybe thousands of shares, thousands of people messaging me. And I was like, there has to be an easier way to collect this cash because I was collecting cash all over campus and it was freezing. So figured out how to make a website, GoDaddy.com. And then I actually went and opened up my first bank account, linked it up with PayPal, and went to bed, woke up in the morning with $12,000 in sales the first day I'd officially launched my business. my website, I should say. And I remember PayPal calling me. This is back when they had humans actually managing their stuff. And I just remember, I'll never forget this conversation. This guy's like, I just want to make sure you're legitimate and like you're not scamming people. And back then, obviously I wasn't scamming people, but I was like, these people trust me.
Right. Like they ordered it. You didn't really have a thing yet.
Yeah.
You were going to make the t-shirts, but wow, $12,000 later.
So I went from, totally self-funded student, kind of lost and directionless. And I did not like wake up one day and say, I'm going to make clothing or I'm going to make Maryland themed gear. But I saw this opportunity and I jumped on it. And then I would say my thing that I stayed true to all this time is just listening to our customers. So that's how we were able to evolve.
So how did it go from, okay, I'm making essentially like a commemorative Thirsty Turtle shirt to, okay, I'm going to lean into this and I'm going to build an entire clothing company based on, Maryland, love of Maryland, Maryland aesthetic, colleges, etc. How did it go from that? And did you have hesitation as you were building that out you're just a college student with it doesn't sound like you really had a lot of financial backing there and how you were doing it. Yeah.
I think like I always started with it as a hobby. I never actually realized it was a job or a business until I graduated. And I was like, oh wait, now I have to figure out what's next.
Yeah.
So the first couple of years I treated it like a club. I had all these, what I called my street team, unpaid interns working for me. They would get incentivized if they sold things, but it was really just a very cool collaborative way to come up with designs. And frankly, it was very easy to recruit students if we're like, hey, there's a bar tab for free at the local place. So it was fun. And it made for a really great like college experience the last 2 years that I was in school. But I would say my senior year, and when I finally realized I needed to take it seriously, because I was really bad at communicating with my parents about what I was doing. Like I was just like, I don't need to explain this. I'm just doing it. So the first time they actually saw what I was doing in real time was when I was in a Cupid's Cup competition at University of Maryland. It's called Cupid's Cup because Kevin Plank started this competition and his first business was Cupid's Valentine. It was his first business selling Valentine's, flowers. So he had this entrepreneurship competition. I thought I had it in the bag. I was like top 5 out of 200 businesses that year. And, I stood up there and I not only lost, but I kind of got embarrassed in front of everyone. He's like, yeah, I really don't see this being sustainable, but I'd love for you to work for me when it doesn't work out. And I was like, this guy, and I have nothing against him because actually him telling me I couldn't do it was all the more reason why I was like, I'm going to prove this guy wrong.
Yeah.
So that summer I sat my parents down. I said, just give me the summer to just do this full time. Because I was always doing it while balancing my education. And I learned how to make my first custom product. It was a Maryland flag bathing suit. And there wasn't one on the market prior, but everyone loves the Maryland flag. And I just saw this as the opportunity. I posted it on social media. I photoshopped this very nice looking girl wearing it. And again, it went viral. I ended up, all the seed funding I would have gotten from that competition, I got all that and more from pre-sales. And I ended up selling all 1,000 units before they came in stock.
This is the summer after you graduated. This is when you say to your parents, give me a couple months, let me see. Because the expectation would have been, at that point, would have been that you'd have to get a job.
Right. Like May 2012 was when this happened. And I mean, there's countless pictures and stuff from that time because I basically moved into my parents' house. And bless their hearts, like they were so great about me just taking their whole house over. But there's pictures from their living room and like basement, my room, where there's just piles of boxes everywhere. And so, yeah, that was kind of the period in my life where I was like, all right, this is not just a club anymore. I have a viable business and I need to start looking at having employees because it's not normal for me to stay up to like 3 or 4 in the morning every day and do all of these different tasks. So that was kind of when I also started hiring people.
Who was the first person you hired?
This girl, she was 16 and I trained her on everything she knew. And she's still in e-commerce now today, working for someone else locally here. But I just remember I taught her like all about Shopify and I was learning too. It was really great back then because Shopify was brand new. And again, I would call them and I would get like a person. I started as Shopify grew, I'd like name drop these people that I knew were still at the company, but just moved up along, Shopify. So it was really awesome back then, starting in e-com when it was so fresh and we were all figuring it out.
Yeah, I had the same experience in building Likeable, which was a social media agency. It was so early. It was 2007 when we launched. And so it used to be like, oh, I know so-and-so at Facebook, or, oh, I know so. It was
Yeah.
just, it felt very small. And it's like,
It
it's
was-
so interesting that you at that young age are building all of this out. And you ended up growing to how many? Over 4,000 products? Did I make this up?
Over 4,000 products that are prime. I mean, probably more than that actually, because I started selling face masks during the pandemic, fabric face masks.
Yep.
And I went ham with it because I loved making all these different patterns. So I probably had about 500 different face mask patterns at one point.
So you started building out, you started growing from early days of e-com, started selling all of this, Maryland merch and all of this stuff. Did you always stay true to that, to the Maryland side of the business? You did, right? It was always
Yeah.
Maryland. And did you ever think, was it important for you to stay in that space because of your love of Maryland and because there was that community, or did you ever think about branching out to other communities?
Oh, I've always thought about branching out. I was more about I went to school with this band that got signed to a major record label their senior year. And I just remember everyone at the high school being like, oh, sellouts, but that's what they needed to expand and grow. And I had this weird reservation because I've made this cult following of sorts with this Maryland identity. And I was like, I want our growth to be authentic. So I wanted to make sure that our growth was authentic and our story was true. I didn't want to just make, Nashville gear because I like Nashville stuff if it wasn't the Route One story. But Route One all the way goes up to Maine, goes down to Key West, Florida. So my goal was always to expand, but the two hesitations were, just that authentic expansion. And also, frankly, I was funding it all myself this time. So I was like, I can bank most heavily on Maryland. I know the Maryland market. And then my direction evolved into licensing deals. So there's a lot of, and this is also unique for my story too, not only for the licensing deals I acquired, but also just the area of opportunity for them. Because a lot of these licensing deals, they'd partner up with a Walmart or a Target. Whereas we were, grassroots, and that also helped their messaging. So I targeted food and beverage industry, but I targeted unique stories like Old Bay, McCormick. It's a very big story here in Maryland. They're obviously an international brand, but Marylanders love their Old Bay seasoning. They love their crabs. So we were their first apparel deal. They didn't really have a licensing partner for apparel before us because no one was thinking about it. So I was kind of tapping into these niches of opportunity, just kind of observing what are Marylanders obsessed with. And this is applicable to most every community or every culture. Why are people staying where they are? What makes them excited to be in their community? And I tapped into brands that way.
I love that. And I also love how honest you are about when you're funding it yourself. I mean, I'm amazed at you. You're graduating college, you get the base college education, but as we know, the School of Hard Knocks is actually a lot more valuable in the States. You just learn as you went, going and knocking on doors for licensing, for learning how to run a P&L or any of that stuff. Did you just learn?
Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at all that stuff.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I knew in my brain, ebbs and flows of business. But, as you grow, you just have so much more on your mind. And so I regret not understanding and prioritizing dashboard view analytics earlier on. Because, if you're juggling a lot, that list just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it ends up keeping you up at night, waking up early in the morning, so many things on your mind. And I could have a whole separate podcast about all the discoveries I learned through the exit process of just analyzing my books from a perspective of a buyer. I mean, they identified all these things that actually ended up making my profit margin so much higher when I noticed these things are on auto pay and not making me any money. Little things like that. You're like, and people are always like, well, why didn't you notice that? I'm sorry. I'm doing 1,000 things, know?
Well, that's the whole point, is you wouldn't notice that when it's your first business and you're building it and you're figuring it all out. But all of those people who can help optimize for your profitability probably couldn't have the vision that you had to go into each of those areas of Maryland. I love that Old Bay example. And I saw some of those partners that you have is really great. And the colleges I know you partnered with and all of that stuff. It's
And
really
the key to success for me, no offense, is like to confuse the outsider. Like we want to wear product that really makes us feel like we're unique. So you might see a crab themed memorabilia item. You're like, that's a crab, but like, why? I don't understand. But you go to Maryland or you go anywhere and you're a Marylander and you're wearing that item, you're going to get stopped by another Marylander because they know you are like a tried and true and they'll start a conversation with you. And so that's the other reason that's been motivating me is I like connecting people in this increasingly disconnected world where we're really all connected by digital means, but we're not really connecting with each other. I like having those in-person moments that still exist when someone's wearing something of ours and they are aware of our story or aware that it's something tied to Maryland and you're comfortable going up to that person and saying, hey, you're from Maryland, where are you from? Oh, cool. Like all these different things. And I hear those stories all the time, which is really neat.
what do you see as the moment, if you had to look back on your journey and you were looking at like a moment that really contributed to growth? Like if you were looking at where you went from like, okay, you know, you're doing Thirsty Turtle merch, you're growing a little bit, here you go, boom. Like what was the big accelerator for you?
There was it's hard to name one, but I see it in a couple pockets. So firstly, the growth areas of opportunity were fixing the really crappy inefficiencies that I had. For example, I used to wait in line at the postal office. I used to handwrite all my labels, put those little green delivery tags on them, wait in line, scan them, then go back, type them all in. And I did that for years because I didn't know any other way. I never had a mentor, right? And then these postal workers would be like, there's an automated way to do this. And I'm like, please tell me how. And no one knew how. So when I discovered stamps.com and I could just copy paste the information, it saved me 4 to 6 hours a day. And I was able to utilize that time elsewhere. So I'd say like category one was just fixing the inefficiencies, which I'm still addicted to because in the world of AI, we could probably automate 95% of what we all do.
Yeah.
It's just about ignorance, not knowing what you can do.
Yeah.
But that's option one. Then situation number two was just space. Every time I ran out of space, like when I started out of my dorm room, but then, the real big first area of growth was when I took over my parents' house. And I say that very casually, but I literally took over every square inch of their house, like their basement, their garage, everywhere. Storage units. And I was like running out of space. So finding my first office space just allowed us to, get past that initial bubble. And then I also identify other key areas of growth throughout my journey when I was just simply running out of space or needing like a commercial space versus a regular RO zone building because I needed a loading dock. These little things just really helped amplify. But then I would say the other areas of growth, well, I've had a lot of wins when I follow my gut. And I also know the path for me is like, be comfortable with feeling out the market first, because, sometimes I'd get cocky and I'd like pre-fund an item and then it wouldn't sell as well. But people love sharing opinions. People love feeling invested in the product journey. So when I would put a feeler out of an item on the internet and I was kind of confident in it, but I'd be like I wanted to launch it, but I wanted people's opinion first. That just amplified the message. And there was several key products, that unrelated to pandemic themed products, because that was a whole other growth area of opportunity. But, our sequin jacket, we've sold $500,000 worth of sequin jackets in less than a year. And it's just a sequin jacket. And I tried to sell it to dance studios and wholesalers prior to posting it online. No one wanted it. And I said, I wore it to the airport and I was like, I'm just going to see if people like it. So many people stopped me. And I was like, all right, I'm going to post this on the internet. So the first picture I posted in the sequin jacket is a girl taking a picture of it on me at the bar at the airport. And that had thousands of likes on it. So I think, sorry, that was like a long-winded answer, but there's just been so many areas of just growth. And I think it's just whatever your limitation is, you have to figure out what that barrier is that's preventing you from expanding.
Separately, you have to send me a picture of the jacket because that is a great reel. I'm just going to make that.
Yeah.
Oh, Was it was Maryland themed?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. I cannot wait to see it. Okay. So these are all the moments for growth. And you ran the business for a very long time before sale came up. Was exiting in your purview? Like, was that something that you ever thought about? Were you approached? How did this come to be?
So the gentleman who ended up purchasing my company, I've known him for a long time. So trust is really important for me, but I just wasn't ready to sell. I really like, we all have our goals, and I was very goal oriented through the growth of my business. And really what my business represented, it was like an enigma of me, where people were saying, oh, you're incapable of this, or you can't do this. I channeled all that into the growth of my business. And my primary goal was, I want financial stability in my life. And I utilized my business to get me there. And so I had these boxes that I wanted to check in my brain, or, just through metrics. And the pandemic really got me there. And what was weird was, when I accomplished all those things that were my goals, I kind of like lost my mojo. Like, I was still there, I was still present, but I didn't have this like energy to see like scale. And also, I didn't want to take higher risks, which is what I needed to do in order to continue to grow my business, higher like financial risks, all that stuff, because I finally got myself to a point where I was like, I can live comfortably. And, what's my next step in life? Like, I was kind of getting sick, and it's great. It's kind of, I don't mean to say this in a braggadocious way, but like, if someone's introducing me, the second thing they say is, oh, this is Allie and she owns Route One Apparel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's a cool like endorsement, like, because the brand has reputation here and everything. But I'm like, I want them to say I'm good at playing saxophone, or like whatever, I want them to have more things that are accomplishments of mine, because me personally, Route One was I already accomplished Route One, like everything that I wanted from it. So now it's playtime with Route One. And that's kind of when I decided to like sell, or at first it was exploring like a potential partnership, but I had to go through all of the thoughts in my head of like, what does that mean if I have a shared partner? Obviously it's my baby. So like, I needed to make sure I was mentally ready for whatever next chapter was. And through the year or so of me exploring all options, I decided that an exit of sorts is the best, because I really wanted to make sure that my role was here and not like here, and that was a way for me to say, okay, I did it. I'm always going to be the founder of Route One, but now I just want this role, and I want legacy and what's next for me. And it doesn't need to just be Route One. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Okay. So I have a bunch of questions from that. That is an awesome realization, and getting to it and how you got there. I get it all. So first, how did you come up with the number that represented or metric, whether it was a specific number or a lifestyle or anything else that represented financial stability to you? And do you think that the number that you set was the correct number for you?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, for me, not to go so deep and philosophical.
Yeah. No, that's what I like.
But like, it really comes down to that for me, was like, I grew up with parents that struggled financially.
Yep.
I love them to death, but they were limited because of, my brother has had over $1 million of medical expenses his entire life. He's had heart surgery 4 times. So not only did I witness them sacrificing, job growth and all these things for more stable options for health insurance reasons and things like that. My dad could never really grow his career because he was constantly quitting for my brother, because he was in and out of the hospital. And so as very young, we're a year and a half apart. I'm older by a year and a half. I just witnessed I witnessed raw human like things that most kids are possibly sheltered by. But I'm so grateful for that experience, because, I looked at them and I was like, not only did I want them to live a financially stable life, like that's been a big motivator for me, but I also wanted to make sure that my life was in a spot where, because they were wrapped up in society, like, we got to keep this job, we got to do this thing in order to not keep up with the Joneses, but like you get wrapped up in this circle.
Yes.
And so I was like, I don't want like my mortgage to weigh on the job that I have to have, or really anything that keeps us tied to what I call society, I wanted to eliminate from the equation. And so for me, it was like paying off my mortgage, paying off all my student debt, paying off anything that ties me to something by obligation. And so when I had that accomplished, and then I had enough money in the bank to say I could probably like actually enjoy life for a little bit, that's when I was like, I'm kind of bored, you know? Because I just didn't want to, the risk that I was like welcoming and jumping into because I knew it could like get me to that place. Once I got there, I was like, I don't want to risk losing it, you know?
Yeah, no, that's why I asked the question, because everyone's answer is so different and it's so rooted in how you grew up.
Yeah.
Always. Whenever I hear any of that. The other thing you said that really struck me was, this is Allie from Route One Apparel, and you sort of didn't want that to be your entire identity. One of the things that founders experience when they sell is that loss of identity. Like, if you're not Allie from Route One Apparel, who might you be? And so did you go through that process at all as you were thinking about exiting and finding who you would be if you were not Allie from Route One Apparel?
Well, weirdly for my situation, even though I've been doing my business for close to 15 years, I had a lot of identity before my business. And because I kind of started my business by accident, it was getting to the point where I was like, I want that old me back. Like,
Yeah.
I want that back.
Yeah.
So like, yes, Route One is a massive accomplishment for me. I also feel like, thankfully, I can balance myself as a influence in Maryland and beyond and have that not be totally tied to my business. However, I was like yearning for my hobbies again. I was yearning for things that kind of sparked my joy and interest.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Route One doesn't or didn't spark my interest, but I was just identifying more things I was doing in my day, in my company, that was not bringing me joy. And when I had the opportunity to exit, still have a role within the firm, that was stuff aligned more with my values and like what I wanted to do, but then also realize this is going to free up my time to do all the things I couldn't do. And also a lot of it wasn't just that I couldn't, I had guilt. If I was like traveling and I wasn't away if I was away in my office, I was like, oh my God, my team is going to think I'm like terrible, you know? Because
it was a chapter for you. I think when I look at you as somebody who started so young, like, this is part one of Allie's story and her career and, you know, all of it. And so it's so interesting to listen to you as a young entrepreneur who built this and sold. It's fantastic over the course of time, starting it right out of school.
It's a really weird story. And I hope you find more women in their mid-30s like me that have sold their business and are single, childless, and like to travel, because let's start a group like with those like-minded women, because
I have those women. I will
great.
Connect you 100%.
Great, because that's where I'm trying to find my tribe, and it's quite an interesting experience doing that here in Maryland in a small town. It's like, nothing against my friends, but we're all so starkly different.
Oh, I have the ladies for you. Don't worry.
Great. Wonderful.
Okay, but side note. Okay, so moving to actual sales. So you end up deciding after going through this process that selling the company is the way to go. The buyer is someone you knew. Talk to me a little bit about that process and how it went.
Him and I had met passively, obviously throughout the years. Like we did business together. He has a very large operation in Baltimore, about 15 minutes away from me, about 100,000 square foot space of warehouse. I'm 15,000 square feet of warehouse space, so it has a lot more space. He has about 60 employees. I had about 20 when we were starting to engage. On and off, he was like showing interest in buying. And then, you know, when you're just kind of running your day to day and he's running his day to day, the conversations would drop, you get distracted, all these things. So when I realized I wanted to take things seriously, I just started, you know, because the past couple of years I've been more active in the community, going out, networking, finally getting some quote unquote mentorship of sorts.
Yep.
And I started communicating with, like, you know, I'd get connected with a lawyer. I'd tell him my story. He'd say, you need to meet my guy who's in M&A. And I'd meet this guy in M&A. And then he'd say, you need to meet this broker that I know. So I was just like talking to everyone, and I was transparent, but I was also like, obviously try to be tasteful with what my goals were. I also didn't know what my goals were day one, whether I wanted to partner or like exit or whatnot. So I ended up getting connected when he and I were talking about purchasing or him getting involved. I decided to get a broker involved because I just needed a little Rottweiler kind of to just make sure that I'm being held accountable. I wanted to make sure that my relationship with the buyer was still amicable and good through the exit process, because it can get really, it just, you feel kind of like a robot.
For sure.
And
you don't want to damage the relationship while you're going through the sales process when it gets tenuous and you still have to work together after.
Because I can say whatever I want to the broker and he can soften it or do it however he means. And he can also say that some of the things that I suggested were his suggestions. So I'm not painted as a bad guy. Yeah. So it was really good to hire a broker. And, it was an interesting experience with this broker because he's a local broker. Yes. So he knew the brand. My brand has a lot of like brand reputation here in Maryland. People know of the brand, but it is a smaller brand. It's a smaller company. It's niche. This guy was making, he was saying basically he's going to do me a favor, but it's interesting for him because he's like, you're so Maryland. So like we could go national, but your best bet is someone local, because my thoughts in my head when I decided what partnership or relationship to go with was, I wanted 3 things to be accomplished. I wanted there to be legacy for my business. Mm-hmm. Like I wanted there to be an exit where I didn't feel like it would just dissipate and go away. I wanted there to be like potential for my employees to stay on. So I was considering a local option, obviously, because I didn't want my team to just, dissolve. And then I wanted there to be something for me to do if need be post exit. So yeah, when it came down to that and we explored probably 10 different options, all sorts of different options, I just kept going back to Garrett's offer. And so I just took the leap of faith. Like we got to the point in the brokerage process and the negotiation process where we like literally talked about all hypotheticals. And so I finally got confident with that exit.
And so you get it across the finish line, you sign on the dotted line, you're done. How do you feel?
I feel, well, I booked a trip to a deserted island in the British Virgin Islands like a few weeks later. And I was like, I'm kidding. I needed my little celebratory time, but I wanted it to be like an intentional reset. But yeah, for me, it was just like, we all have things that weigh on us. And you have to be first aware that that's like your own perception. Like that's your own influence. Your brain is a very unique organ. And it can choose to like obsess over things, or like you see it very, cut and dry. My business exit and like my goal with like changing up my role with my business was something that was weighing on me for a really long time. So even though I may have like canceled it out or like thought, okay, maybe now is not the right time or whatnot, I kept vacillating back to this. So I just had to like push through that barrier, that mental barrier of just preventing me of being hesitant of change, because it's a super significant change. But I knew it was necessary in order for me to continue to grow or like see new opportunities and new perspective. And so I'm very happy. I'm very relieved. But like I said, I'm aware that like all of these feelings are just feelings that my brain has generated. And, I could have chosen to stay with my company for 10 more years. I was just ready.
Amazing. And so what's next for you?
So like weirdly, for the first time in my life, and my friends are all so confused by this, because I'm very goal oriented. I'm really just like, I want to be like a socialite, a homemaker, not a homemaker, but like, I just want to be like,
you want to be a lady of leisure for a little bit?
Yeah. I just want to like leisure around. I want to like relearn some hobbies. I want to do cooking classes. I want to take music lessons. I want to do art classes and just like travel a lot. I mean, I thought about it, and in the close to 15 years that I was running my business, I may have gone on a vacation that was over a week long twice.
Yeah.
And the whole time I was taking my laptop, I was working half the day at least, constantly like, is everything okay? I was always making sure the business was handled when I was gone. And so it's a really weird transition for me to realize like, I'm human. Like this is not normal to be like this, at least by choice. And so yeah, now I'm just like maybe I'll be able to enjoy my pool finally.
How long has it been? How long has it been since the sale at the time of this interview?
January 23rd is when I sold the business.
Okay, January 23rd. So we're looking at, but when we're recording this, even though it won't be out yet, this is the end of February. So this is your month out. So
been a month.
How does it feel for you to do nothing for a little bit? Like just live?
I don't like, so I haven't really been a routine person in general with my business. Now I'm very not routine. So I'm trying to get into some sort of routine just for structure. But it's been great. I mean, like, I go to the gym and I'm not checking my emails the whole time. You know?
It's awesome.
It's just weird because for me, it's like my productivity. This is the thing I have to try to reverse in my brain because it was just so much built into my DNA at this point. Is like, I weigh every hour of my day as on a productivity scale. It's like, is this either making me money or is it bringing me value or whatnot? And like, that was a motivator for me. It's no longer a motivator for me fully. I think my goal now is like, how can I live a full life where, you know, some stuff is productive, but also some things that bring me joy is just like hanging out with my friends around a bonfire and like not having any goals. So it's a very weird transition for me because I was so like focused so long on that productivity scale, but I was starting to pick up that like other people find fulfillment and feel like they're serving in the world or in their communities, not by everything being productive. So
I love this for you. Instead of like, how does it make me money? It's like, how does it bring me joy, or how does it impact the world, or how did that shift is really incredible for you.
Yeah. Like, I want to be authentic. I think that when you are a business owner and you're kind of like selling your soul a bit because you've given up a lot of your own things, like you've sacrificed your own self for your business, you start feeling like inauthentic. And so for me, you know, maybe down the road, I'm going to like start another business or I'm going to like start a movement of sorts in some way. But like the thing that I want to do differently this time is I always want to stay true to me first. But part of that journey now too, since it's so fresh and I did sacrifice a lot for my company, is like, who am I really? Like, what is it? So yeah, I'm just going to take it easy a little bit, but my version of taking it easy is like, you know, installing new landscape lights at my parents' house, like, or like traveling.
Yes, I know what you mean though. I totally get it. The switch from productivity to existence and figuring out and navigating that, and whether or not you start something again or not, you know, having that experience of just being, I think is so essential. So I would ask you this, even though this is very fresh for you, and I wonder if when this comes out, if the answer will be different, but you talked about how people introduced you as Allie, founder of Route One Apparel. If you were to introduce yourself today, would you still say it? How would you introduce yourself? Hi, I'm Allie.
I guess just Allie Von Paris.
That's it.
You know,
I'm just Allie Von Paris.
Yeah, that's my full name. And so, I mean, that's kind of what I want next is just like, who am I? Like, who am I behind the curtain of this business that I started? And what can people view of me? Because I think, I mean, you see it with, this isn't like the first time this has happened, but there's people that have started businesses. There's people that you follow and you don't even realize they have a business that they're running. They are their own persona.
That's right.
And then you have people that have very strong businesses and then they kind of take a backseat role. And where I'm at is I'm like, started the business. I am kind of, you know, I'm obviously connected face wise and, you know, owner wise of that previous owner wise of that business. But like, I just want to build my own identity up a little bit. I feel like, as an aside, like my whole life journey, starting as a young girl, like not certain of what direction I wanted to be in, you know, feeling bullied for being different, all of those things. I want to bring that back. I feel like I've had a lot of like things that I banked on myself. And so maybe I can bring that story back and be able to offer, you know, growth and opportunities to people that are, because there's so many things you can relate to, especially the young girls, like
100%.
So
Allie, there's a book in your future and a TED Talk. I'm just putting it out there for you. Just telling you.
Writer.
I have a TED Talk. I feel it for you. I see it. And I'm so happy that you came on the show today. I love your story. Thank you for sharing it when it's so fresh.
Yeah, very fresh.
Very, very, very fresh. And so I'm so happy we had you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.